Hello and welcome. I am your host, Dogbert, and in this DC Worlds Collide video, we're going to take a look at the top 10 support characters. I must say, though, I was actually kind of surprised when I started thinking about this, just how thin the support pool really is. It was actually kind of difficult to make a top 10. It almost became a top 5. It's that thin. But there is enough to make a top 10, so here they are. In at number 10 is a character you might be underestimating a little bit, and that is Red Robin. If you ever had to face him in Elseworld, he can be incredibly annoying. Not because of his ultimate, but mostly because of his advanced skill, in which it heals the ally with the highest defense for hit points equal to 150% of his attack power, aka a tank in the front row usually. This means getting through that tank is going to be much harder because he is constantly healing him. On top of that, his ultimate actually attacks the entire. He's one of the characters that can actually attack a back row with his ultimate, and adding 2 stacks of weakness to your back row, and can lower your DPS on top of healing up that tank, making it very difficult to get to him, usually in the back row. That's why he is in at number 10. Moving on to number 9. In at number 9 is Deadshot. Now, this might be a character you're not thinking about at all, because you think, oh, he doesn't do a whole lot of damage or anything like that, or doesn't heal people. No, what Deadshot does is he makes the all the enemy team take more damage from your team, which means your DPS gets better because of Deadshot doing his ultimate. It is 15% on the basic, and eventually it ups the crit damage they receive and their crit resistance as well. Nothing else really to write home about. Oh, but also when an ally attacks, he has a 20% chance to assist them. Eventually it goes up to 30%, so he can assist and do a little bit more damage, on top of just souping up your DPS as well. He's an okay early game character if you're just getting started. That's why he's in at number 9. So let's move on to number 8. Number 8 is Harley Quinn, which I don't think she got the respect she really deserves in DC Worlds Collide, honestly. But she can be an annoying character if, on her, her advanced, with her passive, whenever she does damage, there's a 40% chance to trigger a random mood swing. Unfortunately, is random, where she could get Vitality, Haste, Frantic, or Strong Attack. And she grants them to the entire ally back row that you could get this on. So it's kind of a weird kit. Eventually you can get her up and make it so that she no longer gets in love, which grants nothing. Her ultimate does AoE damage to the entire team, and a bigger Harley Quinn could be quite deadly, doing a whole lot of damage. Unfortunately, because she's a purple, she is capped at level 220. I don't really like that they did this to her. She could have been a better character. Maybe not such a random kit. It would make her even better. But for now, she is at number 8 now for our support. Number 7 is a character who is literally only thing holding her back from being higher up on this list is the fact that she is a purple elite character. That is Black Canary. If we could take her up a level higher, she would be much more valuable in in-game. She is incredibly valuable in the early game, and you get her for free. I believe on your second day you get her unlocked. The reason being, she is the only AoE healer in the game currently. She will heal all allies 3 times for 60% of her attack on the basic. This goes up to 80%. She just heals the entire team, where everybody else just kind of does single team heal, this one character. On top of this, she has the advance where she does a silence for 2 turns to whoever she's across from in the back row. This can be a great placement character you put in there to silence somebody who's got to do an ultimate, maybe Damian Wayne, anybody like that, even a Green Arrow, not so much Killer Frost, Kid Flash even, or just a regular Flash just to keep them from doing their ultimate for a couple of turns. It can come in be incredibly valuable. This is actually a very great character, like I said, being held back by that purple designation in this game. That's what keeps her down here at number 7. So moving on to number 6. So now we go to the exact opposite of Black Canary. We go to Pandora, who the only reason why she's up as high as she is on number 6, number 1, was the small support role. And number 2, because she actually gives out shields and has a place on the shield team. And with the Shield team getting recently buffed and having characters like Hal Jordan, Jessica Cruz, and Lex Luthor, it kind of makes her an option there. Plus, she could be used on a self-sacrifice team. She's not the greatest, and she can heal people. But overall, this is not a great character. It just happens to be that she has some unique things that she can do. She gets much better with her emblem, though. As we look at the reason why she is sacrificing her health points to heal the characters. But the big thing is that she can grant a shield every few turns. Plus Cloak, which like that blocks incoming control or debuff. She can also dispel a debuff. And she does increase her own attack, but nobody cares about that. She is a tankier support character. In a pinch, you could put her in the front row if you really needed to. Oops, sorry about that. Let's go back to her. If you can get her emblem up, she does get quite better, giving defensive crit, but the big thing is at the rank 3, if you're willing to put this kind of investment into her, damage dealt by the ultimate additionally gains 50% lifesteal rate, and then, of course, gaining an ultimate point back, or energy back, is gigantic, but this requires heavy investment into Pandora. Not necessarily the character you would do that, but like I said, because of her placements on a couple different teams, this is why she's up at rank 6. Okay, and on to number 5. In at number 5 is the legendary character Cyborg. His kit is definitely legendary, but the amount of damage he does is not great. He is in reality probably pretty much a tank in support clothing, in that you're going to probably put him in the front row. The problem is with he just doesn't do a whole lot of damage. So if you look over him, he does fire out missiles to put on, according to number of stacks of bleed. He gets to fall up. He does work best on a bleed team, since he does put bleed out himself with his basic. Of course, the big thing everybody thinks about with Cyborg is, of course, his ultimate, which is generally why you want to put him in the front row, because he's going to grant himself invulnerable and to whoever has the lowest proportion of hit points, usually the other tank, up in that front row. However, the problem with that is it's not always the tank. It can sometimes be a back row character, and you really want to get it on the tank. That back row character might get healed soon. Unfortunately, you can't control this. He does dispel debuffs with this and does reduce damage that they take. For one round, of course. That's the unfortunate things about Cyborg. He does have a chance with his white, only a chance though, to inflict stun or silence, depending on if the target has stacks of bleed. It's really dependent upon that bleed. You really need him in a bleed team, but he can slot in a pinch if you need to just get an invulnerable up because you're taking too much damage or something. And he does, when his hit points is higher than 40%, he does give himself and all allies apart from himself 15% damage reduction. He gets 25% damage reduction. He does start healing himself. But yeah, just overall, he's just not that great of a legendary. He's probably the worst legendary out of the legendary pools, but he's still better than most characters in the game. And he's just kind of number 5 in support, though. Kind of middle of the road. Moving on to number 4. At number 4, we get into some more valuable, more versatile characters, such as this one, number 4, Two-Face. The reason why Two-Face is such a versatile, interesting character is that he can be essentially a tank or kind of like a DPS who amplifies your back row. He's a very interesting character. Depending on where you place him is what he's going to be. And it all comes down into mostly his passive. Essentially, if you put him in the front row, he's going to grant that front row 18% damage reduction. Great for tanks, plus he can be tanking himself up there. If you put him in the back row, he's going to give damage amplification to the entire back row allies, increasing your DPS. On top of this, he does have a tactical renaissance. He is pretty much needed to use this for the bleed team. It only requires one other bleed character, but there's only a few of those. He is great if you want to run a bleed team. You absolutely necessarily need him. On top of this, he also, with flipping the coin, he can inflict silence if he hits heads and slow. Otherwise, he just does damage and adds some bleeds, which again, if you're on a bleed team, you want to add bleeds usually. On top of this, his basic does add bleeds, and his ultimate Adds a bunch of bleeds and does some damage as well. And he can also call an ally to attack depending on that. And then he can inflict stun. So it's kind of a coin flip whether or not he inflicts stun or not. It's a very good character, one that you might want to slot in if you just need to get a little bit more damage. Because of this damage amplification to your back row, it might be enough. He survives very well, and he's a very good character. But now we have to move on to number 3. Now, this next one at number 3 might be controversial, but in reality, these top 3 characters are when you need a support. You're probably going to look to one of these 3, depending on what you're doing. And number 3 is Zantana. The only reason why she's at number 3 right now is because she got nerfed a few patches ago. Before that, she probably was number 1, at worst number 2. And the nerf is on her passive. This used to do a whole lot more lifesteal for all allies, depending on what rank you had her up to, plus giving that frantic. It definitely did hurt her. Makes it harder to keep everybody alive now. Not as much healing. But she is still a phenomenal support character no matter what. Like I said, you can make the argument. The other nice thing about her is her ultimate is only a 2 energy cost, and it puts defense break out there, which is defense down by 20%, and crit resist down by 5%, up to a maximum of 15%. On top of this, ranking her up, you get to dispel 2 types of buffs as well. Her kit is absolutely phenomenal. Her basic, nobody talks about that. She also gives strong attack for 2 turns, and get eventually to 2 stacks, which increases the attack of whoever your highest DPS is, essentially. And they also get frantic, which increases their crit. She is just an absolutely phenomenal support character. And like I said, when these top 3 are going to be characters you're just going to look to all the time. Like I said, her downside is that lifesteal did get nerfed, but she's the only character who, just being present, gives everybody healing, essentially. I can't say enough about her. Absolutely love her. Absolutely recommend using her. And once you get into her emblem, it gets even better. More stacks of frantic. Second highest attack, so top 2 DPS gets better, and eventually then she increases action bar of all allies by 20%. Her emblem's absolutely insane. Well worth the investment in this character. And with all this said, let's go and take a look at number 2, who might be surprising you. In at number 2, I have Raven. Raven is an absolutely phenomenal character. Absolutely positively needed for our debuff team, which is quite strong. But Raven also has a skill that no other character in the game currently has. And that is actually on her advance, which has a 4-turn cooldown, unfortunately. But she can revive a defeated ally and bring them back and heal them up as well. Eventually, this is a character you definitely want to get up to rank 10 to decrease that cooldown to 3 rounds from 4 if you're using her a lot. The other thing she does is every time she attacks, does damage off her passive, she's going to put some kind of bleed, poison, burn, or frostbite for 2 rounds. Plus, she can heal herself up with some lifesteal if they have enough debuffs on them, and eventually get fear on them as well. Fear is a very powerful debuff in that it knocks back action bar by 30% and decreases their damage dealt as well. This is why she is absolutely critical for a burn team. Her ultimate is also pretty good too. It can hit pretty hard, but on top of that, it's reducing their attack by 8% and defense by 8% every time you use it against them. That's on the basics. It goes up to 10% eventually, and then it duplicates all debuffs on the target by 1 stack for 2 rounds. That is gigantic. This is definitely a character you want to get to rank 10, and she's pretty easy to get, relatively speaking, to get to rank 10 because she is an epic character. And like I said, she is absolutely needed on a debuff team, which is a very strong team. This is a great character if you're having like an early burst damage, like when your tanks is going down very quickly and you're going against a very hard node, or maybe you have somebody hitting that back row like a Damian Wayne who kills a DPS very quickly on turn 1, turn 2, whatever. You can use her kind of as an insurance policy, bring that character back and maybe get through the node. And she can also have that critical, bring back that tank. Now you have that tank back. The only downside is you have to wait for her to come out of essentially like a stun state in order to do the ultimates again. But a phenomenal character, absolutely worthy of number 2. Now we head to the best. And I don't think number one is going to surprise you too much. It's Kid Flash. Obviously a very fast character, best healer, single target healer in the game, because that's what he does heal. So with his ultimate, he just goes around, gives them shelter, and heals up a single target very quickly. But his real value is in his advanced ability, which also does a heal automatically without having to do anything. Plus he gives them recover, which is kind of like a heal over time. He doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. He just gives himself haste. And his passive one healing increases healing applied to the target less than it grants him sturdy armor. And everything is about healing with him, even his tactical renaissance. If you choose to use it, will gain another 20% healing receipt bonus. He's great on a heal team, obviously, because, well, he would want this tactical renaissance for more healing. So it works well with Jessica Cruz. He is just a great character overall, well worth putting any investment into him that you do, because he is going to be your go-to healer, and you definitely need heals when you get into the later game. And he's fast on top of this, meaning he's going to help you build up those the energy to get to your ultimate points and get all that done. He can really keep everybody alive. The only downside to him is he can be a little bit frail on his side if he starts getting hit. So you want to keep him in that back row and keep him safe. So that's it. Let me know if you think I missed anybody or the order should be a little bit different. You can let it down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.